Welcome back to the 8 Players Members interview. Today we have Ted Bryne. Ted, good to see you. Ted is an agency owner slash community owner slash full-time legend from a small town in Kildare in Ireland. I've known Ted for over a year now, I'd say. Ted has built his own agencies multiple times, and now he's working on a few exciting projects as well around the online space. And Ted is someone that I want you guys to talk to as well, because he's come from a very, very small town, pro golfer background, nothing to do with the online space, no real avenue in there, and you kind of created it for yourself. So Ted, kind of give us an introduction to yourself, your name, your age, where you're from, what your background is, for everyone else to kind of relate to you.
Yeah, thanks, bro. Yeah, so I met James probably just about a year ago. He got him through WhatsApp. I just joined Andrew Tate's course and then didn't take it seriously. Joined Educate. James got me in without even a call. It was just his little voice messages that got me over the line.
Best salesman in the game.
Yeah. And yeah, to be honest, I actually didn't really speak to James for a few months after that, but didn't really take Educate too seriously. I was kind of procrastinated a bit, but then got into college, Maynooth this year, spent the whole year there at accommodation, surrounded by thousands of other 19, 20-year-olds. And yeah, that just created the drive within me to make something big of myself, get to places like this, and be surrounded by people like this.
Okay,
Yeah.
Talk to us kind of about the background of school, because we had a deeper conversation. You don't need to go into too much detail about it, but how important has it been for you to get around the right people? What impact has it had in your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I really struggle with my whole life. I think a lot of people will resonate with this as well, because in Ireland you're kind of just surrounded by the same demographic of people, and it doesn't get any easier once you go into you get to kind of 14, 15, kind of secondary school, and then you go into college and it just gets probably worse. And you just kind of have to make your environment work for you, which is really difficult. But if you really want to get to places like this and people like this, you will make it work for you. And yeah, about attracting higher level people, that was the one thing that I put on my list, was like, how can I make somebody that people would want to be around? And I wrote down, and I think James understands this really well, is writes down who you exactly you need to be and kill off that old version of yourself. And once you can do that, then you naturally just start to attract better people, and that's really one of the first things you have to do starting out.
Yeah. And in regards to when you were starting your agency and getting into the online space, what was that journey like for you? Because obviously you were a lone wolf for the first time, as everyone is when they're starting out in the online space. What was that journey like for you, mindset wise, going from like 0 to the first like 10k month that you guys had with your agency?
It was literally taking as much imperfect action as possible, which you're big on. What people struggle with at the start is that journey on their own, which was really tough. I did kind of have a few people around me, but it wasn't anything like this. And if you can get past that initial stage and take as much imperfect action as possible, you learn so much by doing. And I took so much action that it was impossible for me to fail, because I failed so many times. It took me 1,000 cold calls before I booked a meeting. It took me...
It's a lot of cold calls.
In college, yeah, I was pretty shit. But I got decent and I went from that to maybe 3 in a row. And from there, I was able to build a cold calling team and outsource and stuff like that. But you have to go through those initial stages, and that's what builds the character. So
someone who's maybe from the Midlands, or someone who's from a small town in general, whether it's Ireland, England, Europe, maybe US, whatever it is, probably mainly Europe and Ireland, what would kind of be the advice for them in regards to, okay, they're in the first few months of the online space now, what is the next step for them to excel?
I would say become like a sponge. The one thing that I was great at was just being as resourceful as possible. I would always just try and get as much information as possible, but also isolation is kind of key, because when you're actually killing off that old version of yourself, you actually less is more. So once you stop being around those people, once you stop doing certain things, you actually have so much more time to do stuff and the right stuff, and it makes life a lot easier. So I would say isolate yourself from, obviously you're gonna, luckily some people here have had some supportive people. I didn't, and I isolated myself, and just become a sponge and absorb and learn as much as possible. Like that's what I was talking to Rob, that's what he did. He just learned as much as possible from the start.
Yeah. And this is your first mastermind weekend. Yeah. How was this experience for you? What do you kind of feel like you've taken away from this weekend?
Because I was in that period of isolation, like I like I was kind of away from everyone. I was luckily in that sense. Obviously in college, nobody knew who I was or anything like that. But even at home, like I wasn't around anybody else, and it's just kind of shown me, like, the reason A Players was one of the main reasons A Players was created was, okay, so you're here right now and this is you're starting, and you want to be this person, and you can see people like James right now, and you want to have traits that he has, but it's that whole journey. And for me, it was like just having people that can give you those little quick answers that save you months, and that's really what it's about, is just sacrificing and then everybody wins. And really, if you can have people like this that support you and can shorten that journey, because look, in the start it is really tough to get past that initial lonely spell. Very few people do it.
Yeah, it's me and Joe were saying it is who lasts longer, not who's more talented.
Yeah.
And we've seen that all the time. Like I was one of the closers for Iman's Educate. There's 5,000 to 10,000 students in there, and you see the same consistent people all the time in the chat, and the rest of them just give up. And like it's not as competitive or saturated as everyone thinks, because people just give up like in the first few months. So how important is perseverance?
Yeah, I struggled with finding like a reason to do it, but then I just realized it was purely down to me making it my last resort option. And I talked to Paul about this yesterday, and it was like, well, there's no other option, so what else are you going to do other than excel? So make it your last resort option and just don't give yourself a choice. And this is, for a lot of people, this is going to be the only choice, which is the right one. Yeah.
During this weekend we had a lot of really, really special guest speakers. We had Rob, we had Paul, we had some of the guys that are in the house right there, like very fantastic talks. What would you kind of take away from meeting people like and networking with people like Rob and Paul? Was there any main characteristics that you would take away, or main pieces of advice, or why is it important to get around people like him?
Especially for a lot of people that will be watching this, when you're around people that you look up to, it's just a whole different ball game when you see them in real life. And when you're at home and you see these people online, but when you actually meet them, they give you this extra energy. And obviously Rob gives off more energy than anybody else, but they give off this extra, they have a certain aura about them, and it just gives off that energy, including James. And you do really feel, I guess you just feel just an extra boost when you're around them, and that just gives you, when you can almost reiterate that feeling when you're struggling in those kind of periods, because we all have these periods where we have like 2 or 3 months we're okay, and then 2 or 3 months maybe when things aren't going, you just don't really feel great. Like it's kind of tough to show up every day, but I suppose little things like that can really help you when you can see, and they've told you yourself that these periods, they happen, and that's what it takes to get through them. It's just proof of concept, and I'd say that's what gets you through it.
What would you say has been the most valuable asset to you so far about being a member here?
I would say just support, because I've been on my own for the last year, and then the last few months now with A Players, actually seeing other people. And I've actually never told you this, but when we started off in Educate and you got me in, I was first of all surprised that there was another Irish guy that was actually aware of the online space. I thought it was just me, because everybody was so different.
Yeah.
And at the start, we didn't really speak for a few months. I didn't really go to your coaching calls, and that's because I'd assumed you were like every other Irish guy still. And that was my own fault, because I realized, wow, there's actually other people here who can actually excel and become incredible versions of themselves, and you were probably the first example of that. And once I started to like observe and then get to know you a bit more, I was like, wow, this is what's possible. Because I didn't know who Rob was, I didn't really think of Conor McGregor in a business sense. And then when I started to see you and a few others, I was like, wow, this is possible. So it was almost like me using my past experiences, being a bit judgy of Irish people, and had a set kind of belief of what they were like. And then you were kind of one of the first ones that showed me that the path is there.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, bro.
Okay, fantastic. So you would say that the biggest asset to someone probably at your level, or even someone more so starting out, is probably just seeing that it's possible, seeing as like it's within reach. Whereas beforehand, maybe if you're starting a community from scratch, you're like, am I alone here? And
Yeah.
then when you get around good people, you're like, okay, now it's actually possible. Now it's gamified. Now, like, we're in the villa with 13 other guys the last 5-6 days. It's game. You see, it's real. It's touchable, and zero, like, nothing separates you or Joe, or you and Elliot, or you and any of the other guys in here doing like 40, 50, 60k a month. That's how powerful community is as well. Any last thoughts would you kind of say? Any last things that you want to say to people that might be watching this and might be on the fence?
Yeah, I would just say identity is the biggest thing, because when I started off, I was known as that clown. I was known as that idiot who would make these mistakes or forget stuff, and I was painted as this person who was just the stupidest. I would almost make myself look stupid in front of people just to get attention, and that kind of just painted a picture of who I thought I was. This guy who didn't maybe necessarily get a great leaving cert, even though whatever I tried hard, and just really that set belief of yourself, who you guys probably think you are right now, but really you can be anybody that you want. I know I have an idea of what James is kind of like. I was talking to his parents earlier this weekend, and to see what he was like back then to what he is now is incredible. So, and a lot of us as well. So there's no limit to what you can achieve. It's just purely down to how quickly you can take action and find out what you're truly capable of. And that's what people like James are doing right now. And yeah, I would say just find that version of yourself as quickly as possible and make that your number one priority. And you'll naturally attract people like this around you that want to be around you and level up, I'd say.
That's fucking awesome. Well, Ted, thank you very much. I will put Ted's socials here. If you feel like you aligned with Ted and the story and where he comes from and who he is right now, and you want to have more of a conversation with him before you even hop in, or just in general you want to talk about the online business space, I leave Ted's socials right there. And you can reach out to him as well. But Ted's been a champ. This weekend I've noticed a few things about Ted that I'll talk to him about later on. That definitely, with the right discipline, with the right work in the right areas, that he'll obviously, success is inevitable. So Ted, thank you very much for coming on here, and let's crush the next few weeks, next few months.
Of course, brother.
Let's do it, bro.